A little while back, I watched a YouTube video from the creator Haby147 called Call of Duty has finally lost the plot, where he talks about how Call of Duty has moved from a gritty, dark atmosphere into a walking meme fest. It inspired me to make a video about why what Activision is doing is a lot more sinister than just making a goofy money generator. So basically what I'm gathering from Haby's video in full is more so that Treyarch is trying to make this game look like a funny, quirky shitpost to generate Papa Bobby's future generation's grandchildren, until he learns that basically every COD since 2019 has been like this. But towards the end of the video, he still likes it, considering that the casual shooter market is completely monopolized by Activision with Call of Duty, and it hits some of his marks being a World at War fan. Now, I'm a lot more jaded on this topic than most COD fans probably are. I've truly been radicalized since 2019. I've been playing Call of Duty since I could cognitively hold a controller, my first game similar to Haby being World at War. These days, I outright refuse to touch the absolute slop that Activision is serving behind that rat-ridden Popeyes counter. There is absolutely no shot I am getting teabagged by three 12-year-olds playing as Snoop Dogg, Nicki Minaj, and Master Splinter. Activision already ruined my childhood enough. So how did this happen? How long has this been going on? What has Activision done to this franchise? Well, let's go back to 2019, which is the year, in my opinion, that Call of Duty died. Modern Warfare 2019 kind of changed the game for Call of Duty at the time, and veteran players were super hyped. First of all, we were getting a new Modern Warfare game, and that alone was enough to get fans like us hyped. We haven't seen a new Modern Warfare game since Modern Warfare 3, and no, not that dumpster bin, this absolute gem. On top of the name alone, we were being blessed by the IW8 engine. So let me drop a little bit of knowledge on you real quick. Every single game ever created has came from Half-Life, except for Call of Duty. Call of Duty uses the engine from Quake 3. This absolutely blew my mind when I learned it a few years ago. But then when you go look at Quake 3 compared to COD 4, it kind of all starts to make sense. Every single game all the way up to Modern Warfare 2019 uses a heavily modified version of Quake 3. Wild. Why Activision, with its four massive development teams at the time, waited until 2022 to create their own in-house engine is beyond me, but whatever. Okay, I hear you. So how was 2019 the death of COD? That sounds a little bit dramatic to me. Well, before I can even get into the game itself, we need to talk about design philosophy. And this will play into the conversation for later as well. Joe Secott, before the release of 2019, had this to say. One of the things we really want to do with this game is we want new players joining the game. It's a big focus for us in weapon and level design. Our guns will be a little bit more lethal than in previous Black Ops, and that helps a lower skill player get a kill where most people wouldn't. Our maps are a little bit more porous. We want players to have a safe space to, learn how to move and shoot and put those pieces together. The interviewer then asks, but that approach that you're describing there isn't going to come at the expense of the hardcore players, right? And then Joe replies, that's not the plan. Hearing this clip back again makes me want to throw an Xbox One that I just don't have. So Joey wasn't lying when he literally told you that they were catering to casuals. And in retrospect, yeah, you guys absolutely killed your veteran fan base at this point. I honestly can't wait until we get to Black Ops 6. You guys didn't just shit the bed. You guys had Hershey squirts in your grandma's casket. Okay, well, now that that's out of my system, how did this design philosophy come to fruition inside the game? Boy, let me tell you. Modern Warfare had some of the worst balancing and genuinely the worst maps in Call of Duty history up until Black Ops 6 came out and fully embraced that halls and doors philosophy. I could rant endlessly about how much I hate these maps, so let's just boil it down to this. There were no good maps in 2019, except for Shoot House. Like, seriously, let me ask you a question. Can you name me one map from 2019 that was universally liked other than Shoot House? Did I just hear someone in the back say shipment? Shut up, dummy. That was a COD 4 map, one. But two, that map is built for dudes with brain damage to see who could hit each other the hardest. I would do a thing where we go through each individual map and explain what's wrong with them, but Bobby literally told you earlier. Our maps are a little bit more porous and we want players to have a safe space to, learn how to move and shoot and put those pieces together. And that's exactly the design philosophy that made 2019 notorious for dog shit maps. Asshair Cave was way too large and essentially had one wide open lane and another more closed off but still just massive open lane, which led to long range camping battles, on top of doors on the buildings being visible shields to the Asian Andy squatter throwing mystery liquids at your feet. Piccadilly also suffered from literally just being an open circle with a couple buses in the middle. These were nothing maps. It got so bad from a player reception standpoint that they just started throwing in remastered COD 4 maps to profit off of nostalgia rather than just change their design philosophy. And this ended up not only working, but turning into a trend of Activision saving face for the next title by adding back well-received features from older titles and then using it as a selling point for the next game as if it's a new feature. Most notably with Black Ops 6 with Prestige and round-based zombies, but I'm getting ahead of myself. That design philosophy that Bobby mentioned earlier didn't stop at ruining the map seemingly forever, but it was also disrupting gameplay. 2019 was kind of the start of the whole entire meta shifting because a new gun dropped thing, and also just suffered from astonishingly poor weapon balancing. The 725 broke the game for the entirety of its release cycle to this day. The MP5 was shattered for a long time. The AS Val on release still haunts players' minds as we speak. And my lord, the 357 snake shot. If I can find footage of that gun somewhere, I'll throw it on screen. Like, imagine having gun balancing so bad it literally gave your players PTSD. Because I sure as hell shudder at the mention of an AMAX to this day. And once again, Bobby told us all this was going to happen. The maps are porous. They have safe spaces. These are all campy, large maps with small, campy spots that naturally have high player traffic. The game was built for players who couldn't move and shoot at the same time. Despite being the largest franchise within the largest and oldest multiplayer genre in the world, Activision was dead set on gaining new, fresh players to the franchise, regardless of how much they harmed their veteran fanbase. But why do this? There must be a motivating goal, right? Well, there was, and no one liked it. With the times changing, allowing kids to gamble for skins and overpowered weapon variants was a privilege of the past. So Activision got straight to the drawing board and started getting their sweatshop, devs, together to see how they could profit. One brave dev stood up from the awkwardly long table that Joey ordered, seemingly to compensate for something, and exclaimed, "I know! We could collaborate with other brands and analyze social media trends to base our character skins off of." And after a long break of silence, Joey finally stood up from his seat, walked over to that dev and said, "You're a fucking genius," and then proceeded to catapult him out of the window from the 60th floor of Activision HQ, stealing the idea as his own to present to the shareholders. And with this new idea, Activision forced the rest of their 4,000 devs to work on textures for the newest Leatherface skin. And that was the birth of the godforsaken bundle, weapon and operator skin bundles that costed half the cost of the actual game, and it worked, because with the beginning of the bundle also came the birth of the COD whale. Activision had successfully captured an audience of new players, and even captured many veteran players who could still tolerate Modern Warfare in spite of its map selection and weapon balancing. See, COD is like a strong narcotic. It's highly addictive, dopamine spiking, and comforting until you start losing brain cells. And then you start breaking things because a 10-year-old just beat you to death with a bong from behind your back. But when you try to come off of COD, you get the jitters, a crazy withdrawal. And Activision is doing everything they possibly can to fight off the Narcan-wielding overlords of disenfranchised COD fans and budding competition. With all these new tools in mind, it was time for Treyarch and Sledgehammer to take the reins and start milking the cash cows while the boys over at Infinity Ward take their time cooking something extra sinister. The next title in the franchise was a game coming in from Treyarch called Black Ops Cold War. I personally barely played Cold War. Towards the end of 2019, I was already so fed up that I was actually approaching a point where I didn't even want to bother playing the games anymore. Actually, I didn't really play the last 6 months of Modern Warfare much either. But there's a couple important points to gain from here before we move on. Cold War didn't carry quite the same map traits that 2019 did, trading notoriously bad map design for simply unremarkable, unmemorable maps instead, which definitely left COD in a vanilla, boring condition at this point. The weapon balancing was pretty much in the exact state that it was in during 2019, even bringing back the MP5 meta, except they never fixed it this year. They also continued the trend of bringing back old features, such as almost all of the popular maps from the first two Black Ops games, theater mode, and the shittiest excuse for a zombies game mode since Zesty Bowl of Sushi. But what truly makes Cold War a key player in this nightmare tale is a little patent that Activision filed a few years ago, which was now active and ready to terrorize the masses. We need to talk about the system and method for transparently styling non-player characters in a multiplayer video game, and systems and methods for dynamically weighing match variables to better tune player matches. Basically, we need to talk about skill-based and engagement-based matchmaking again. So this is going to take us a while, but it's incredibly important information, and some of the egregious shit that's in here is liable to blow your mind. So go grab a snack, pack a bowl, and let's go take a little tour into the peak of corporate Black Mirror levels of greed. A lot of this section is a direct result of information from Trid TV's videos on these same patents, so shout out to him for being one of the only people on YouTube even bothering to cover these patents. You're the go. Link to his video in the description. So from now on, for the sake of brevity, that system and method for transparently styling non-player characters in a multiplayer video game patent will also be known as the bot patent. And the one that dynamically weighs match variables will be known as the SBMM patent, because frankly, you're going to get confused and I'm not typing or saying that much. Both of these patents were filed in 2016 and 2019 respectively, most notably the true SBMM patent being the one filed in 2019. That's important information because that's the same year Modern Warfare came out. The bot patent was created by Michael Condrey and Mark Rubin, former lead developer for XDefiant, while the SBMM patent was made by a four-man group of no one we've ever heard of before in terms of actually being developers on any of the COD games, which makes it seem to me that Activision called these dudes in solely to create this system. Take of that what you will. Let's take a look at the bot patent created by Mike and Mark. On the very first page under abstract, it reads, "A system and method are provided for transparently styling non-player characters, NPCs, in multiplayer video games such that it's difficult to distinguish between human players and computer-controlled NPCs. NPCs may be styled to resemble human players in terms of both player profile attributes and gameplay actions such that the players may not recognize NPCs as non-human computer or controlled players. Additionally, or alternatively, NPCs and or human players may be presented with a limited set of profile attributes that may reduce or eliminate the ability to distinguish between human players and NPCs. One or more profile attributes may be anonymized and or the ability to view player profiles of human players and or NPCs may be disabled altogether." What this patent is saying is that this is essentially a system that tries to blur the lines or downright hide the fact that there are bots inside these lobbies. The game is disguising bots as real players. Trid actually brings up an example of this captured from Blame Truth's video from Modern Warfare 3. Let's take a look at that real quick.
As far as my recent players go, I definitely played with them. It says last met 49 minutes ago or whatever. Like, I've personally never seen this. As long as I've been playing Call of Duty, I've never seen somebody in my recent players just not have a name. And I'm going to ask them, where's your name? It's about to get weirder. I'm going to go back after a little bit. I'm going to fast forward here, and you can tell it's the same person because of the whisper. I'm going to show it again. Same timestamps and all that. More of their information has disappeared since I sent this whisper. Look on the right there.
So as you can see here, when he's going to message him the first time, it shows that he's playing on Xbox Network and using a controller. And then when he goes to message him again, that's just gone.
So as you see in BT's video, and as Trid points out, not only is this bot completely nameless, but after time goes on, more account information suddenly just disappears. This is genuinely freaky, manipulative shit. This is the kind of shit that would have made a Herobrine level conspiracy in the late 2000s. Like actual ghosts in the machine. I hear you thinking in your head right now, well, why would they even go this far to hide bots? What's the worst that a bot could do? Well, what if I told you that COD uses bots kitted out with paid cosmetics to bait low-skill players into buying bundles? And when that low-skill player buys a bundle, their matchmaking gets players that are lower than his skill bracket, so that Activision can trick the player's mind into subconsciously believing that buying the bundle makes him a better player. Don't believe me? That's fair enough, but why don't we go read from a section deeper in the patent before you write me off? Styling NPCs and or human players. In many video games, players are able to view or otherwise access player profiles of other players and NPCs. As such, NPCs are often easily identified as generic or non-human computer-controlled players based on things like unusual screen names or gamer tags, and or incomplete or uncharacteristic player profiles. Regardless of whether NPCs are selected or generated, or made available for selection by one or more human players, various implementations may be utilized to make it difficult to distinguish between human players and computer-controlled NPCs. For example, in some implementations, NPCs may be styled to resemble human players in terms of both player profile attributes and gameplay actions such that players may not recognize NPCs as non-human computer-controlled players. NPCs and/or human players may be similarly styled in a number of ways. According to an aspect of the invention, NPC Profile Engine 126 may populate an NPC profile either in real time when an NPC is generated or for later retrieval with attributes and attribute values typical of other human players in a gameplay session. In other words, any player profile attributes that may exist for a human player may also be provided and displayable for an NPC, regardless of whether one or more NPC attributes may be populated with non-actionable data. In this regard, a human player that views or otherwise accesses an NPC player's profile may be led to believe that the NPC is actually a human player. In this regard, an NPC may appear human if its NPC player profile is viewed or accessed by human players. So there you have it. An active patent that literally proves that bots and lobbies can hide themselves and stylize themselves with weapon and character skins to manipulate the player into thinking that they're real. Oh, you thought I forgot about the whole low-skill players being coaxed into buying bundles to make their game easier thing. Yeah, you thought, bucko. Check this out. According to an aspect of the invention, Microtransaction Engine 128 may arrange matches to influence game-related purchases. Game-related purchases may include an acquisition by a player of an item in exchange for a fee, such as a real currency fee, a virtual currency fee, and/or other type of fee. The item may include an in-game item, a new level or map, and/or other item that may be used in relation to a game. For example, Microtransaction Engine 128 may match a more expert marquee or otherwise influential player with a junior player to encourage the junior player to make game-related purchases. A junior player may wish to emulate a marquee player by obtaining weapons or other items used by the marquee player. Other types of pairings and/or other groupings of players may be used as well. Microtransaction Engine 128 may analyze various items used by marquee players, and if at least one of the items is currently being offered for sale, match the marquee player with another player, e.g. a junior player that does not use or own the item. Similarly, Microtransaction Engine 128 may identify items offered for sale, identify marquee players that use or possess those items, and match the marquee players with other players who do not use or possess those items. In this manner, Microtransaction Engine 128 may leverage the matchmaking abilities described herein to influence purchase decisions for game-related purchases. So, that was a lot of word. If you're confused, what Activision just said is that in this patent, the game will pair a junior low skill player with a marquee high skill player in order to influence the low skill player into buying the bundle so that they can emulate the high skill player, in addition to leveraging matchmaking to do so. Big shocker. Activision straight up fucking lied multiple times in their fraudulent ass white paper what they released a while back that states they don't influence gameplay or matchmaking elements, or that money does not in any way, shape, or form factor into matchmaking. Well, Activision, here's the way, shape, and form that you filed and have had activated since 2020. On top of lying in their community's face, they also gaslit us by saying that SBMM has been implemented since COD 4, which is just complete and total bullshit, and I shouldn't have to explain to you why that is complete and total bullshit. This company is one CRT TV in a torture chair off of committing Clockwork Orange level MK Ultra experiments on their player base. There's only a few more things in the bot patent we need to go over, and then we can move on to the SBMM patent. And then we get into some really dark Black Mirror shit. Bots aren't only being used as walking store advertisements. A big issue in Call of Duty right now is that the matchmaking algorithm makes it extremely difficult to near impossible to play with some of your friends or family. And when people have discussions about Call of Duty, it seems like everyone has a completely different matchmaking experience. I don't think this is entirely to do with just SBMM, but it also has to do with this section of the bot patent, determining whether to fill identified gaps with NPCs. According to an aspect of the invention, the determination as to whether NPCs are used to fill identified gaps may be based on a myriad of factors. For example, in one implementation, Matching Engine 122 may make a determination to utilize one or more NPCs if a requisite number of human players has not joined a gameplay session after a predetermined time period, so as to not unnecessarily delay gameplay for one or more waiting human players. This is pretty standard stuff so far. A lot of games such as Overwatch, Marvel Rivals, Splitgate, I think even the new Halo does this. The new Battlefield will probably also do this, but that's not even where it gets bad. The determination to utilize one or more NPCs may be based on a skill level, e.g. beginner, intermediate, expert, etc. For example, if an average skill level of the waiting human players is less than a threshold skill level, e.g. less than an intermediate level, Matching Engine 122 may make the determination to utilize NPCs. In some implementations, human players may be made aware that NPCs may be used in a given match even though it's not readily apparent which players are NPCs and which are human players. This is really rough. Basically what they're saying is that low skill players are getting bot lobbies without even knowing that they're bot lobbies, and then basing their opinions of the game based off of those bot lobbies. I wonder what other game might be doing something really similar to that. In some implementations, Matching Engine 122 may elect to utilize NPCs if some threshold number of human players in the match indicate a willingness or preference to play with or against NPCs. For example, in some implementations, Matching Engine 122 may only utilize NPCs if all human players in the match indicate a willingness or preference to play with or against NPCs. Alternatively, Matching Engine 122 may utilize NPCs if a majority of players indicate a willingness or preference to play with NPCs, or if a majority of players do not oppose playing with or against NPCs. So here's how I read this. They're saying that if within their matchmaking algorithm, if it decides that players have a higher willingness decided by the algorithm to play bot matches, they'll possibly match teams of those players with entire bot lobbies. Here's an experiment for you if you don't believe me on this. Create a new account and then play a few games like a 5-year-old with a controller. Walk into walls, get no kills, don't move and shoot at the same time, and you will get entire lobbies full of either 1, bots doing the exact same behaviors as you, or 2, players that also can't move and shoot at the same time. We're seeing engagement-based matchmaking before we even get to the SBMM patent. This shit is layered thicker than Kim Kardashian's makeup. And then think about it. You can now match a bunch of either children or people who have never touched a controller before, or people who are genuinely that bad at the game, match with a team of bots shitting on them with paid cosmetics, and then when that shitty player goes, hey, maybe the weapon in that bot's bundle will make me kill people faster, not knowing that they're fighting a bot. And then when they buy a bundle, as we've seen previously in the patent, they'll leverage matchmaking abilities and then give that shitty player a team full of rookie bots to go 30-0 on, so that they can make the bad player subconsciously believe that they're a better player after they bought the cosmetics. The patent does go a bit deeper into the inner machinations of how the system works, but for our purpose, I think that's really all we need. I'll have a link in the description to these patents, and if you feel like I forgot something, let me know. Now that we're done looking at the cursed version of the dead internet theory, we need to go look at the death of fair matchmaking, the SBMM patent. Before we start, I must stress that despite the title of this patent being synonymous with SBMM, it's not really an SBMM system. In my video talking about Marvel Rivals EOMM, I talked about SBMM and showed this graph. Basically, how SBMM works is that you take a match pool of players, split them into tiers based on skill level, and then select the best players of each tier and then match them against the fairest team-ups. It's a very simple and fair for competitive way of matchmaking that we've used forever and doesn't even necessarily only play into online gaming. This is essentially the same concept as divisions in college sports. You don't want D1 players dunking on D3 players all day. Nobody's getting better that way. This graph, however, is more akin to what an EOMM system would look like. This graph is specifically in relation to the matchmaking research papers published by NetEase used in Marvel Rivals, but it's also a very good way of showing how ridiculously complicated the matchmaking systems that games like Marvel Rivals and Call of Duty have. While these companies will use fancy words that make it sound like a refined version of SBMM, they're intentionally gaslighting you so that you don't look twice at the patents and to confuse the player base into thinking that they aren't quite literally rigging your matches. So now that we understand that, let's go look at the SBMM patent. The framework may facilitate automatic determinations of an optimal mix of players and styles to produce more satisfying player experiences. The system may dynamically update analytical processes based on a statistical or otherwise observed data related to gameplay at a given time. In this manner, the system may continually tune the matchmaking process based on the observations of player behavior. gameplay quality, and or other information. So EOMM, like I was saying earlier, it's just EOMM that they made on the title sound like just SBMM, and it's just bullshit. In one implementation of the invention, the system may include a scoring engine that identifies a potential match. As used herein, the term match refers to a matching of two or more players. I have that specifically in there because I want to make sure that this gets across that this is also a thing in like your gunfight 1v1s. So your COD 1v1 me bro thing is also just rigged matches. I hate to tell you this, but for example, a potential match refers to a potential grouping of two or more players. The scoring engine may obtain one or more match variables to use to generate a match score for the potential match. The one or more match variables may include, without limitation, a latency between players, a relative skill level, a presence of preferred players, a team composition, a time that a given player has been waiting to be matched, a player preference, whether a given player is involved in a soft reservation, which is described herein, and or other information used to assess a potential match. So a player preference, whether a given player is involved in a soft reservation. A soft reservation is a cutout bracket for low skill players. That's what they mean by soft reservation. It's a loser's queue. It's a loser's bracket, basically. The system may determine whether to select a potential match for gameplay based on its match score. For example, the system may compare the match score for the potential match with the threshold match score. If the match score meets or exceeds the threshold match score, the system may select the corresponding potential match for gameplay. The threshold match score may be defined based on a player input. For instance, the system may receive an indication that a first player wishes to wait for a higher quality match, and an indication that a second player wishes to be matched as soon as possible. The system may set a threshold match score that is higher for the first player than for the second player, and therefore potentially matching the second player sooner, albeit in a potentially lower quality match. This is basically hidden MR. The algorithm will decide based on your gameplay characteristics and choose a number for you, and then generate a match score based on the hidden MRs of players. And if the players meet the theoretical threshold that the matchmaking system set, then they will match that game. It's similar to SBMM, but uses way more gameplay factors to determine rating. And you'll never be able to actually see or improve your rating in any meaningful way. In some implementations, the scoring engine may automatically tune the coefficients based on the changing circumstances, game history, and or other analytical data. If a player has previously shown dissatisfaction with another player, e.g. by rage quitting or giving the player a thumbs down, the engine may place more weight on the player simpatico over other preferences such as map or comparable skill. In another example, if a player has been performing poorly, e.g. getting killed at a rate higher than the player's historical rate, the scoring engine may dynamically adjust one or more coefficients to match the player in a game that will improve the player's performance. The player will be matched with easier opponents, matched with teammates that historically resulted in better match outcomes, and or placed in a game that is more tailored to the player's preferences, e.g. players that play in games more closely aligned with their preferences tend to perform better. Here we're seeing what makes it to where you can play like a bot and then get bot lobbies, like I said earlier. It's saying that if you're a player who predominantly rushes, for example, you might get paired with campers. And if you start doing well, because camping-based playstyles counter rushing-based playstyles, vice versa, Activision will never let a bad player just be a bad player. And then those bad players will give feedback on changes in the game when their entire matchmaking and gaming experience is completely tailored for them. To fine-tune the matchmaking process, the system may include an analytics and feedback engine that analyzes player and match data to determine whether a given match was good. A match may be deemed good when a player is determined to have enjoyed gameplay associated with the match based on one or more quality factors that are used as a proxy for player satisfaction. The quality factors may include, for example, a duration of gameplay session, e.g. via an analysis of player historical data, player expressed psychological state, e.g. frustration level, premature exit from the game, i.e. rage quitting, and or other information. In one implementation, the analytics and feedback engine may analyze game data, e.g. whether a given game level or match favors playstyles. We need to skip a little bit because the next couple pages of the patent seem to outline a deep dive on how these systems work on a technical standpoint, which we don't really need, as us as the players really only care about how it affects us in a match. But again, if you want to read more about that, it'll be in the description. Generating a quality score for gameplay sessions. Referring back to figure 1, Scoring Engine 122 may generate match scores in order to predict good quality matches that will lead to satisfying gameplay for players in a match. In order to make such predictions in a meaningful way, the system may identify match variables, coefficients, threshold scores, and/or other information that are correlated with good match quality. However, to do so may require an understanding of what constitutes good match quality. Yeah, Activision, what do you think a good match is? In some instances, Analytics and Feedback Engine 124 may take into account the level of satisfaction of all the players in a given gameplay session. For instance, Analytics and Feedback Engine 124 may determine that a good match quality is one in which each player achieved a certain level of satisfaction. In this manner, Analytics and Feedback Engine 124 may assign a higher quality score to a first match in which each player achieved a certain level of satisfaction than a second match in only which some of the players achieved a high level of satisfaction. Even if some, but not all of the players in the second match achieved a much higher level of satisfaction than the players in the first match. Thus, Analytics and Feedback Engine 124 may help to ensure that 100% of the players of a given match have a good experience versus ensuring that 80% of the players have a great experience and 20% of the players had a bad experience. Okay, so here's a problem with this. Around the time 2019 came out, I showed you a quote from old Joey that said, "One of the things we really want to do with this game is we want new players joining the game. It's a big focus for us in weapon and level design. Our guns will be a bit more lethal than in the previous Black Ops, and that helps a lower skill player get a kill where most people wouldn't. We want players to have a safe space to, learn how to move and shoot and put these pieces together." Do you think that these matchmaking systems with all of the bot patents and skill ratings, etc., are tuning for high skill players at all? You can't one size fits all a matchmaking algorithm. This is why older matchmaking systems are so beloved, because they were random and ping based. There was no, well, I guess it's time for little Timmy to win because he's sad his parents are divorcing. And there shouldn't be well, this player's rage quit the last 3 rounds. Let's pair him with bots drip down to the socks and cosmetics and see if he buys a bundle, and then we'll lower his hidden MR. The great thing about old matchmaking is that within a play session, you can face against all kinds of match variables. You could learn from players better than you. You can relax and stomp out the next team. You can get paired with a really close game, all within the same matchmaking session. This system isn't made under the philosophy of let's make everyone happy. This system is made under the philosophy that we need to make our low skill players happy enough to buy our bundles. And then this isolates all the high skill players into their own little hell bracket while the daycare center gives out participation trophies and ice cream sundaes. Remember when I said we were going to get into some real Black Mirror shit? Well, here it is. A player engagement factor, e.g. a speed of player input, a level of focus as determined from camera peripherals, etc., where greater engagement may indicate greater satisfaction. This is how you get the goofy ass YY kids in your lobbies. They're using a speed of player input as an engagement factor. So how much you're tapping your controller and pressing Y a million times and reloading for no reason and spinning your mouse around is the kind of players you're going to get in the lobby. So basically, if you sit and camp and basically do nothing an entire game, you're going to be faced with other players who sit and camp and basically do nothing. While if I simply rush towards the point and don't just sit and do fucking nothing, that I'm going to be kitted up with streamer Timmy 2 mini thumbs and fucking lose my game over it. I can't believe this is the shit that they make matches off of. It's just wild to me. A competition level of a game, e.g. whether lopsided or not, where evenly matched games may indicate greater satisfaction, or a biometric factor, e.g. facial expressions, body language, sweat, etc. Wait, biometrics? How the fuck is Call of Duty measuring biometrics? How can Call of Duty see my facial expressions? When did I give them access to this information? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the methods and systems to modify two-dimensional facial images in a video to generate in real time facial images that appear three-dimensional, an active patent by Activision. You might be thinking, well, 2K does this for their 3D face scanner. What's the big deal with this? This image is the big deal. This image shows a drawing of a person playing in real time with the camera on, playing Call of Duty. And in tandem with the matchmaking patents that state they can use biometric factors like facial expressions and sweat, and with what I'm about to show you, this shit gets downright insidious. Credits to Prime Pete and Branch Off Bush for this info. If you don't know what a DLL file is on your computer, it's a file with code that can be accessed by multiple programs on your computer at the same time. Prime Pete explains it like this. Instead of having to write code to gain access to your camera, apps like Discord or Skype will instead gain access to a Windows DLL file that will give them access to the video feed. He then goes on to explain that Branch Off Bush, who for brevity we'll just be calling Branch from now on, used a software that could see what DLL files Black Ops 1 was accessing, only finding a DLL file that allowed for compatibility between Windows XP and Vista, and Windows 11 today. Pretty standard stuff that allowed for long-time compatibility. Basically, back when Activision was actually just a chill guy. Pete then goes on to explain that when Branch used the same software to access what DLL files Modern Warfare 3 was using, he found a giant list. Among them, none other than nvcamera64.dll, a Windows DLL file that constantly gains access to your video feed whether or not a camera is connected or not. Not only can nvcamera access your video feed, but it also accesses your monitor screen, which, as we saw with Trid TV's example that showed Blame Truth's video bot information disappearing, and as we saw in the bot patent where it said that bots can disguise themselves as real players, Prime Pete brought up the really good point of, what if Call of Duty is using a recording of your screen to make a one-to-one copy of your likeness and playstyle as a bot in the game? He also shows a patent connected to the facial imaging patent called The Methods and Systems for Continuing to Execute a Simulation After Processing Resources Go Offline, which, as the title suggests, essentially and allegedly, fuck you Activision lawyers, is a botnet, which is a felony and is malware. It's a botnet that uses your computer's resources after you've gone offline to train their bot network, and I'll personally add, in my opinion, allegedly, fuck you Activision lawyers. How is this stopping Activision from accessing your camera, mic, and screen while you don't even have the game open? On top of the evidence that Prime Pete shows in his video that shows that Black Ops 6 has background resources active even after you close the game. Call of Duty is constantly watching you, using your facial expressions to use as data for their matchmaking algorithm. If you've ever left Call of Duty on while you did something you may not have wanted to be on camera, Activision has that footage and audio locked away somewhere being analyzed by an algorithm without ever having to ask for your permission, probably because you signed up for it in the terms of service that you and I never read or will ever read. So that's nice. Love that for us. Here's a picture of my cat to make you feel better about the disgusting information that you just heard. Tell her she's cute in the comments and maybe it'll keep her from getting into my cabinets and eating all of my bread. And let me immediately ruin that for you by telling you this. At 1400, the system obtains an image of the individual from one of the sources, including, but not limited to, an independent camera, a camera integrated with a mobile or any other computing device, or an image gallery accessible through a mobile or any other computing device. For reference, 1400 was the drawn image of your face as you play the game, by the way. So they just admitted in the patent to being able to access not only your phone's camera as you play, but your entire image gallery. This is spooky shit that no one would ever willingly agree to. Would you let a stranger comb through your image gallery right now without deleting anything on it? Well, Activision doesn't mind just snatching your phone and downloading all the images for safekeeping. I don't know how this company is still legally allowed to sell games, let alone still having players who will spend hundreds of dollars on each yearly COD entry. If you still played Call of Duty before watching this video, are you gonna keep playing it? I'm not shitting on you. I don't want to be mean about it, but like, I actually genuinely want to know. And like, if you are, why? Like, what is keeping you attached to this game? Is it just the monopolization that Activision has put into place? I don't know, man. I gotta know. There are some other things in the patents and more proof of these systems, but we spent quite a long time on a number of patents and we still have a lot to talk about. So if you want to hear more, I'd recommend going to watch Trid TV's video if you're still interested in hearing more about those patents. With having the data they needed from Cold War, Infinity Ward was ready to release Modern Warfare 2, and Activision was ready to push those patents to the absolute limit. Modern Warfare 2 was a blatant reskin of Modern Warfare 2019 with arguably better gun feel. That's my opinion, by the way. I honestly love the gun feel from Modern Warfare 2, and I especially love the gun feel in Black Ops 6, but we'll get there. Literally just a reskin down to the opening menu was just Modern Warfare 2019. We got a hold of the beta and then realized a few things immediately. Footsteps are damn near louder than gunshots. The minimap was still completely fucked and wouldn't tell you player locations. No dead silence to counteract the loud footsteps. The gunsmith was ridiculous and convoluted. The introduction of staged reloads and all of the maps and gameplay shared the exact same philosophy that they had in 2019 while upping the price with the rest of the industry to $70. According to Charlie Intel, Activision made $1.85 billion in net revenue in Q4 of 2022 alone from Modern Warfare 2 and Warzone 2, which is $694 million more than they made the previous year in the same quarter. If this isn't indicative of how much they upped the development of bundles at this time, I don't know what is. The COD whales were officially out in full force, and Activision was spoon feeding them with waifu skins. And the monetization systems they patented were proving themselves a crucial asset to their revenue. But then we got the launch. Oh boy. The launch of Modern Warfare 2. This was certainly one of the launches of all time, for sure. This game had 3 studios, 3,000 devs, and 3 years of development, and was missing, I shit you not, hardcore, leaderboards, stats, a barracks, challenges, medals, inspecting weapons and gunsmith, saving weapon blueprints, camo unlock notifications, importable settings, turning crossplay off, XP token countdowns, customizable reticles, and split screen were all missing on launch. I couldn't make this shit up if I wanted to. This company has done so much insane shit, I can't even keep up with it all. Like, there is probably shit that Activision has done that is completely lost to history, because within the amount of shit that they pull every single year, like, I don't know, there is a black box of information of the shit that Activision has done somewhere. Somewhere. They also brought back Spec Ops. No one played it. It was an unfinished mode that barely had any content just so that they could sell the game as we brought Spec Ops back. The typical bring back an old feature and rebrand it as new and improved. And yet somehow with the massive increase in devs and funds, they seemingly can't even manage to capture the essence of one of the simplest game modes in Call of Duty history. Great job, guys. They eventually ended up adding hardcore back as a game mode, but calling it Tier 1 and exclaiming how Tier 1 was a harder experience than the core modes of the game. Now, this is a contentious topic in the community, but here's my hot take. In what world is the mode where you're running around like a headless chicken or camping in a corner for an entire game, one-shotting people with every single weapon on the roster, a harder game mode? I feel like the whole Tier 1 branding was just another way for Activision and Infinity Ward to cater to people who can't aim long enough to hit more than 3 shots on a moving character. Even Mark Rubin, one of the creators of the bot patent, was on Twitter saying this at the time. I'm not a fan of SBMM. I don't like how it treats players. When I was at Infinity Ward making COD, you could see it being pushed on us from the top. I left and am now making a new FPS without SBMM. Ranked is where that belongs. I think it'll be a better experience for players. Remember though that at this point, all the matchmaking patents that we went over earlier were known to the community as just SBMM, and that Mark Rubin was trying to push advertisement for the now dead game X-Defiant, which I actually liked a lot, despite the hatred I hold for Mark Rubin and the mismanagement of the game between him and Ubisoft, but maybe that's a video for another day. Another contentious topic within the community is the amount of people playing the game over time. Because as with everything with Activision, they keep it under wraps. This company won't even tell you how many people you're playing with. Remember when they were proud of the player counts and displayed them on the screen when you clicked on any online mode? So players will argue when the Steam chart hits a new low, arguing that consoles take up more of the player base than PC does, which is not true. Old Bobby Kotick said under oath in a testimony in the FTC v Microsoft evidentiary hearing that, quote, the bulk of players are playing on phones, and then you have probably 25% on PC, and then there's probably 15 to 16% that play on PlayStation and 7 to 8% players on Xbox. And with Steam being the biggest distributor of games on PC, I think it's fair to say that Steam would probably hold the largest share of player count on their platform. And with that being said, by February 8th, Modern Warfare 2 had lost 73% of its players on Steam. With the massive loss of players on MW2, I think it's pure copium to suggest that consoles didn't also take a significant loss as well. But Activision doesn't necessarily care about a loss of players. Activision only cares when that loss of players leads to a drop in profit, in which they profited massively on Modern Warfare 2. And then Activision made possibly the most disgusting move they have ever made up to this point. They cease and desisted SM2, a fan-made project with countless of hours of blood, sweat, and tears and passion that was completely taken down. Imagine creating a piece of media so beloved by the people who encountered it that over a decade later, they take the groundwork of what you've created and then make it playable and safe for the community in perpetuity, and then stomping on all of that hard work because you might release a shittier version of it yourself, filled with microtransactions and the ability to steal nudes from your players' iPhones. I cannot even put into words how disgusting this fucking company is. And this wasn't even the first time they've done this to a fan project. No. Because in 2024, one singular day before the release of another fan-made passion project, H2M, which took the sales of Call of Duty Modern Warfare Remastered to the top of Steam's purchase chart, was also cease and desisted. Activision, even when gaining tons of money from the release of a free fan-made mod that costed years of time and money from fans of their franchise, was cease and desisted again in the most disrespectful way possible. One goddamn day, one day before H2M was scheduled to release. This company deserves the worst possible outcome that any company could possibly have. And you, as a consumer, are the only ones who can actually damage them. Remember that. Because this is how Activision feels about years of continued support from their player base. After losing the faith of their entire player base and destroying their image, they released the worst Call of Duty of all time, bar none. Ghosts, fuck out of here. Black Ops 3 campaign, kick rocks, motherfucker. MW3 was here and was ready to absolutely shit down your throat. MW3 was a wake-up call for a lot of the community. The campaign was so short they were getting roasted at the Game Awards, and then devs started getting ass mad about it on Twitter, with Barry Sloan, the actor for Captain Price, calling Christopher Judge a clown and insinuating that he doesn't write his own material. Another dev said that COD absolutely destroys all of the God of War games in metrics, which to me is honestly hilarious when your last game lost damn near 80% of their player base, and it's also just like lame as fuck. Another dev said, imagine having short user engagement after your game is consumed, can't relate. There's so many There's so many things that's so wrong with this, but my main thing is that my brother in Christ, it is a single player narrative based game. How stupid. That is the dumbest thing you could possibly say in retaliation to a joke at the Game Awards. This is just ugh. This is also really indicative of how the devs feel about the insane patents that I told you about earlier. So I'm not going to do the whole, but the devs are great despite the publisher thing. They know what they're doing. If Modern Warfare 2 was a re-release of 2019, then Modern Warfare 3 was a DLC for Modern Warfare 2 at best. They brought some maps from the original Modern Warfare 2 back, again, profiting on nostalgia. And really, the only important information I can even find on this game is that the sales were 38% lower for Modern Warfare 3's first 3 weeks, and that the servers were cyber attacked so bad that according to this tweet from Mr. Dalek JD, servers for MP, Warzone, and Zombies were completely broken, ranks reset, weapon levels reset, classes reset. They even took the entire store down. MW3 was just a useless throwaway entry from Activision because MW2 was supposed to be a 2-year life cycle, and Black Ops 6 just wasn't quite ready yet. So there's barely anything even worth covering in my opinion compared to the rest of the information that's in the video so far. Black Ops 6 was the nuclear bomb that buried Call of Duty, full stop. And they aren't even done with the game yet. We're finally beginning to approach present day. Again, if you're still here, you're super cool and I really appreciate it. I've spent days producing the schizophrenic ramblings you're watching right now, and the fact you've made it this far, it all makes it very worth it to me, and I really appreciate it. So where do I even start with Black Ops 6? EOMM in this game is completely off the chain. Every single match is a CDL match. Creators were on Twitter complaining about it within weeks of release, and I almost immediately dropped multiplayer modes to attempt to play zombies. Notice I said attempt. We'll get there. Charlie Intel tweeted, Nuketown 24/7 is great in Black Ops 6 until the skill-based matchmaking just kicks in and suddenly we're all playing a CDL match instead of just having fun. And then Nero Cinema said, with the release of Nuketown, it's official. It's not even the maps that are bad in Black Ops 6. It's Black Ops 6 in general. Omni movement, free wall hacks, SBMM, and terrible servers. No maps can work with that formula. Even a map as tried and tested as Nuketown. Speaking of maps, let's go talk about some of the worst maps in Call of Duty history. The maps in Black Ops 6 pretty much completely abandoned the 3-lane philosophy of every Call of Duty game ever. Basically, all these maps are 2 or even 1 lane. I'm going to be taking some screenshots from this Blame Truth video, which I'll link in the description. Firstly, Red Card. This map is so bad that it unanimously gets skipped in map vote so much that I've actually only played the map like twice. The first time I played Red Card, I never found an enemy despite the lobby being completely full for about 3 minutes and then left. And then the second time was when Prop Hunt released, to which I played 1 round cosplaying as a soccer jersey until I realized that in Black Ops 6 Prop Hunt, you could just hose down the walls and props around the entire map like a Splatoon character until you happen to get a hit marker on something. These fucking guys can't even make Prop Hunt right, man. I guess you could argue that Red Card has 3 lanes, but in play, it's just a massive open square of nothingness to shoot people on, if you can even find somebody to shoot. Lowtown was also another ridiculously open map that gets unanimously skipped on the map selection board. It's pretty, but it's functionally ass, and it only really has 2 lanes with one of them having a shit ton of water. Protocol is once again just a massive open circle, except this time it has buildings on each side of the map that you can snipe each other from, because that's always super fun. This map is also at best like 2 lanes, with the lane on one side being kind of dipped in to use as a flank to get to the other side's spawn, but it almost never gets used because it's just an open death trap. Vault is just 2 long open lanes with the building in the middle to act as a death funnel. It also has like just ridiculously awkward pacing, and the map is just like, it's not the worst map in the universe, it's just mid as shit. Like there's no effort in it whatsoever. Payback is literally insufferable. It's just 2 lanes of running straight at each other with the convoluted ass house taking up the entirety of 1 lane. which is also just an open kill funnel, not to mention that you can sprint across this entire map in less than like 10 seconds. Warhead is also an absolute abomination. It's literally just a big ass open sandy dune with half buried houses in the spawn and objects from Nuketown placed randomly around the map like pepperonis on a pizza. You could also probably sprint across this entire map in less than 10 seconds. Subsonic. Oh my fucking god, subsonic. Once again, 2 lanes with a big ass plane hangar in the middle with slim hallways on either side of the building and doors that you can open and close for some reason. I don't know why you would even bother with that and what Joey's infatuation with doors are, but whatever. This map is also the size of a Tic Tac. Fucking map the size of Wee Man. Workuta is okay at best. Again, really only has 2 lanes. But this one has a little bit more cover and a little bit more flow than the other maps. It's also a reasonably sized map, at least comparatively to the rest of them, but it's still under the normal size of a COD map. This one kinda-ish gets a pass. For time and my sanity's sake, I won't mention every map because that's enough to grasp the design philosophy they were going for with Black Ops 6. Tiny maps that would result in quick games with massive blink areas in them. My running theory is that all of these maps were made to appeal to the TikTokification we have in media right now, so that you can make everything quick and snappy so that players will mindlessly grind quick XP farm matches. I also think that this entire game is based on the fact that small maps like Shipment and Shoot House were the most popular game modes in the last 4 COD games, only really because they can't make an original map to save their fucking life. So they thought that if they made every single map tiny and mindless that they could increase engagement. Activision makes every other design choice based off of data and algorithms, so I don't know why this wouldn't influence the map design for Black Ops 6 as well, but again, that's just my opinion. I want to move on to zombies, because me and a lot of other Zombies fans were so immeasurably hyped for Zombies to come back to the classic round-based experience that we've been waiting for years. And the rollout for Zombies was incredible. Activision was finally acknowledging the Zombies community again, and we had hope that Treyarch might actually hit it on the money with this one. And they kinda did. I actually loved Zombies for a minute. It felt like a massive return to form. I was one of those kids that watched 6-hour videos of Zombies lore, to be honest, and I kind of still do that as an adult. Black Ops 1 Zombies lore is peak, what can I say? But it felt really good to play a classic round-based Zombies again. Liberty Falls is a really good starter map to me, despite literally being drag and dropped straight from Warzone so bad that the Zombies community lost their fucking grippy socks. They ended up having to update the map later to actually make it look like it was overrun by zombies. Despite that though, I think the map plays really well. The gas station you spawn in is my personal training spot, but you can go up to the church, out the back door of the bank, the door by to the right of spawn. Some absolute degenerates will even use the bowling alley. I thought Gobblegums coming back was really cool, but I didn't love the system that they use for earning them now. I kind of miss the old system of farming yourself liquid divinium and then doing massive gambling sessions for the measly chance to taste a perkaholic, but that's probably why I have a gambling addiction now. So I mean, you win some, you lose some, I guess. Pack-a-Punch felt as beefy as ever, and I really enjoyed having the elemental system back. One of the coolest things about this year's iteration of Zombies to me though, was that we finally got progression in Zombies past just high rounding. I think the permanent upgrades you can get for your perks and elements are super cool and unique, and the camos you could get from Zombies and use in multiplayer was just another layer of stuff to do. I mentioned in the Rivals video that I'm a sucker for completionist content, so all the like dark matter camos and stuff within Zombies got my jimmies rustled, I tell you what. Terminus as a map was also really cool, but I didn't really play it much due to reasons I'll explain in a minute. The new wonder weapon was super cool. The variations of enemies changed things up and made you play differently. The map was also massive, so much so that I never actually got to fully learn it. So honestly, I don't know that much about Terminus, so sorry to the Terminus heads watching this. Zombies, even if you were playing by yourself, is always online, so I had a massive issue where I could play the game for about an hour without having any network issues, get to a high round or almost complete an Easter egg, and then I would get a massive lag spike that would just leave me standing still and completely helpless while I got curb stomped by a horde of zombies bigger than a Black Friday sale in 2005. This made the game feel like literally pointless to play. And despite the fact that I do genuinely like the zombies modes, I'm never touching it again, because the multi-million-dollar company was so lazy, incompetent, and greedy that they started using AI art for their loading screens and promo. There's going to be some contention about this because some people vehemently disagree with the argument of AI art being bad in general, while I would argue the exact opposite. The reason specifically that I refuse to support AI art, though, is because a damn near lifelong friend of mine, Nino, has been drawing for his entire life, and he's really good at it, and he wants to strive for it as a career path, which is awesome. And he's a big reason why I started doing content creation on YouTube. I see my scripts and my videos as kind of as art. I spend countless hours making these, and I now even share the sentiment that with the development of AI, that small channels like mine could be rendered completely obsolete. There's no reason that an AI couldn't write the 7,955 words that I've written so far in this script. And with how advanced voice models like ChatGPT have right now, down to catching its breath and stuttering, there's no reason that AI couldn't also do an entire voiceover for this video within the next 2 years. Activision has already set the precedent to start replacing their artists with AI and then firing anyone who speaks out about it. And it's incredibly harmful to artists and content creators. Small AI rants aside, I mentioned network issues with zombies a minute ago. And that wasn't just a zombies thing. This was an issue game-wide. When Black Ops 6 released, the netcode was a main point of contention for a lot of players, and since Activision is so secretive about literally everything, it made a lot of theories about damage being nerfed mid-game, intentional ghost bullets, and skill-based damage. While it wouldn't surprise me, I don't think we have quite enough evidence to call it yet, but with latency essentially being thrown out the window when trying to find a match, I wouldn't rule out that network-based issues causing horrible delay in what's happening in the server and what's happening on your screen. The Tactical Brit made a video called Black Ops 6's servers are a mess, where he does extensive testing to see what exactly is going on in the back end of Call of Duty servers while you're playing the game. And he found that Black Ops 6 is supposed to run on 60Hz servers, which is pretty common in most FPS games. Hertz are relative to the amount of packets of data you're sending to the server and then being sent back, which includes all of your movement, shooting, whatever. So if you're on a 60Hz server, you should be sending 60 packets of information and then getting sent back 60Hz of information and then getting sent back 60 packets of information. That's at least how my tiny brain understands it. What Tactical Brit found out though was that during peak game hours, you were getting sent between like 30 and 50 packets. Tactical Brit then does a test where both him and his friend, under good networking conditions, test for delays where there theoretically shouldn't be. Here's a clip from his video to show what he found.
And already, there were some problems in an ideal scenario. I'm going to show you some footage of this. We had 10 instances of a character sprinting and tactical sprinting across a door. And whilst regular sprinting, we seemed to have fairly okay hit registration with no big issues, but once the character was moving at high velocity and tac sprinting, on 3 of the 10 occasions, we had no hit registration at all. And I'm at a distance using an XM4 with a high rate of fire weapon, and I'm not moving my crosshair across the screen, I'm firing at a straight center point directly in front of me with a natural bit of recoil deviation. And although I'm firing in a straight line at a really high rate of fire, on more than one occasion, I got 0 registration on the character tac sprinting across the door. And that is in ideal network scenarios. So there's already a bit of error of doubt.
So here you see that even in matchmaking conditions that are pretty much as close to ideal as possible, there's still moments where you won't get the hit registration you're supposed to be getting, even when firing in a straight line against a moving character. Now add in omni movement, crackhead gameplay, and the inevitability of not hitting every single one of your shots, and that alone will make the game feel incredibly unsatisfying in a gunfight. And that's under 10 milliseconds of latency. Most people play at like 30 to 40 with 12 people in the server. So something is definitely wrong with the servers at this point. He then goes on to show that the hitboxes for characters are also completely cooked, even at optimal latency, and that the third-person animations are delayed, which makes it to where an enemy might be shooting you while turned the other direction with their gun down. So you visually literally cannot tell who's attacking you. And since the delay in third-person animation is so bad, you'll get killed around corners or get killed extremely fast, because while you might not see what's happening on your screen, the person shooting seems to see just fine. And Tactical Brit notes that Black Ops 6 doesn't use any kind of lag compensation, so latency seems to always favor the shooter, which explains the effect of your time to kill seeming exponentially high while you're getting gunned down within milliseconds, which was what always bothered me the most about the 6v6 modes in Black Ops 6. And mind you, he hasn't even shown you what a bad connection looks like. Let's take a look.
So I did a bunch of different testing on this where I had bad connectivity and also the other person had good connectivity, and then I tried it where they had bad connectivity and I had good connectivity, and generally speaking, the entire thing is a mess. The second you introduce a single player into a lobby who has a fluctuating latency, or what you would consider to be a bad connection, so much disparity starts to happen pretty much across the board. Everything feels greatly more delayed, you feel more desync in third-person animations, hit reg becomes remarkably more questionable, so let's talk about it. So the first scenario is where I'm on around about 80 latency, and the person I'm firing on is still maintaining their low ping of sub 10 milliseconds. And effectively, if you are the person with bad latency and you're the shooter, the situation does get a little worse for you in some scenarios, but it also degrades the experience for everyone. So to start with, when firing in a straight line with somebody strafing across the door or moving across the door at high speed, it pretty much doubled the amount of times there was no hit registration. So we went from about 3 out of 10 scenarios under good networking scenarios to about 6 out of 10 where firing at somebody entered a no reg scenario. So that's not great if you're on a slightly more fluctuating or tricky connection. And that's to be expected. That's not a uniquely Call of Duty thing. Generally speaking, if you can play over Ethernet, please do play over Ethernet. And if you're playing over Wi-Fi, please do anything you can to maximize your general latency. But the problem, and this is arguably the biggest issue with Call of Duty, is that it always favors the shooter in terms of lag compensation. So there are times where if you're firing in a straight line and somebody moves across the door, or you happen to hit an opponent who is somebody who is on a good connection, they're going to receive damage around the corner. So I, as the shooter, will receive a delayed hit marker. They, as the receiver of the damage, will be well past the door or window that they crossed and still receive damage. So this entire system favors whoever's firing, and that is not great. Many other games in the past, like Battlefield, had instances where they favored the shooter in networking-based scenarios where ping got tricky, and then completely changed that system so that people with good connections were prioritized. And Call of Duty absolutely needs to be the same.
So here he lays out what it looks like when one player has a good connection and the other has a bad connection. And he shows that where at good latency, when shooting in a straight line against a moving character, the hit registration misses twice as much, and that the person who's running by doesn't have the hit register until they're well past the wall. And then he shows what it looks like when a player with bad connection makes a quick turn to shoot him as he jumps past the doorway. And the dude is completely sideways with bullets coming out of the side of his suppressor somehow hitting him. It's all just a complete mess. Now, think about how many times you get into a gunfight in a single match in Black Ops 6. And how fast everyone moves and the amount of players in a match at the same time. There's like 50 to 100 plus gunfights that you'll get into in a match depending on the game mode. And for over half of those fights, there are all sorts of delays in hit registration and animations and hitboxes all happening at the same time. So everything just feels like a complete mess for everyone involved. Black Ops 6 launched on Game Pass, which led to record-breaking numbers for Call of Duty. But since then, according to Game Rant, Steam Charts, and The Gamer, Black Ops 6 has lost over 47% of its player base since launch, losing players faster than MW3 did. And no one liked MW3. And with that loss of players, Activision is doubling down on bundles, doing everything they possibly can to turn this franchise into a walking meme so that brain rot, room temperature iPad kids can max out their mom's credit card on the new Seth Rogen, Family Guy, and Beavis and Butthead bundles, and then turning legendary COD maps into an MLG meme from 2008. It's genuinely the worst fall off I've ever seen a company have, yet somehow still managed to rake in cash. But that's where we're at today. Activision has managed to turn their entire franchise into a joke, while disregarding their fans and then giving their investors the most wet sloppy a man could possibly conceive of. All while, in my opinion, and allegedly cannot be confirmed, fuck you Activision lawyers, selling every single bit of data they can gain from you from your phone's gallery, from your live camera, your gameplay, and even your content. The bottom line and the entire point of making this video is that we're getting to a point where if we don't stop supporting these game companies that are using these incredibly malicious ways of gaining information and engagement out of players, then I feel like we're going to be in an extremely dark position a few years from now when literally every single game you play is just some kind of algorithmic data farm trying to siphon your information. Like, if the biggest franchise in gaming history sets the precedent that they can use facial recognition and engagement-based matchmaking to like rig out your games and then leverage matchmaking for bad players so that they can be subconsciously tricked into buying bundles. Just all of this is completely insane, and the only people who can stop shit like this is me and you from buying the games and playing them. So I guess this is me here telling you now, stop playing Call of Duty. Stop it. Just stop. Like, I don't know how you could watch this entire video and then still somehow come to the conclusion that it's like, hey, time to boot up Black Ops 6. Hopefully they don't see me with my dick out, but okay. I don't know. This was my biggest project yet, and I put days into the process of making this video. So I really appreciate you watching, and check me out on Twitch and join the Discord, which are linked in the description, as well as the sources and credit to the creators who have been documenting the downfall of Call of Duty for years. If it wasn't for guys like you with the information I use in this video, all of this would have been lost to history. I probably won't make too many videos that are quite this long again, because it was a hell of a project, but I really hope you liked it. And again, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys later.